Former Ford and Hertz CEO Mark Fields is here to discuss. Mark, it's good to have you. To Megan's point about more likely than not, give viewers a sense of what the war room sounds like right now at GM or Ford headquarters as they try to fold in some cases, these social media posts.
Well, what's happening, my view, what's happening inside the conference rooms at GM, Ford, Stellantis, and the other global OEMs is they're kind of looking at what's been at least intent to be announced right now, right? So you got Mexico and Canada tariffs supposedly being implemented at 25% on March 4th. 8 days later, you got tariffs on aluminum and steel coming in. The Trump administration has said by beginning of April, they want to put 25% tariffs on all vehicle imports coming into the U.S. So there's war rooms right now that kind of lay out what are the potential tariffs on the books. And then what are the near-term actions that we need to take as automakers to handle that? And in the short term, it's all about looking what inventory is on the ground. I think what you're going to see if the tariffs do take effect, you're going to see a lot of the same behaviors in the market that you saw during COVID and even during the semiconductor shortage, where you're going to see, OEMs basically bring incentives down for the pre-tariff vehicles. You're going to see inventory lean out because it's going to be more difficult to produce vehicles in the U.S. There's a lot of components coming in, and the border is just, administration is not capable right now of handling these new tariffs. You're going to see consumers rush to buy these pre-tariff vehicles. So I think you're going to see a lot of those behaviors. And if you're an OEM, you're trying to figure out, do you delay production in that you're producing in Mexico and Canada right now and maybe put them in lots until there's clarification on what happens with the tariffs? You're looking, again, at your pricing and in your incentives right now to take maximum advantage of the inventory that you have. And then you're trying to game out where are you going to make your product sourcing decisions and new product programs. And I believe every OEM right now is just taking a pause on all that because it's very, very difficult with zero visibility on, what's happening on the global trade environment, EV sales rates, policies and regulations. So there's probably a huge pause on things right now.
Right. We're starting to get reports that the House GOP might try to use would-be tariff revenue to zero out or offset some tax cuts. I mean, if the thinking is that this is actually going to be counted on revenue, isn't the notion of stockpiling inventory or waiting to see what happens kind of a fool's game?
Well, again, the administration, the Trump administration has been very volatile around these things right now. I mean, the fact of the matter, Carl, when you look at the impending tariffs from Canada and Mexico, half of the top 50 top-selling vehicles in the U.S. and 60% of the overall volumes could be impacted by these tariffs. And of that, 40% is vehicles priced below $40,000. So when you think about the affordability issue, the issues around inflation and things of that nature, this is where I believe, the Trump's end game, I believe, on the tariffs for Canada and Mexico, particularly as it relates to the auto industry, is really about accelerating the renegotiation of the USMCA free trade agreement. And that's why I think either this tariff is either going to be delayed and not implemented on March 4th, or if it is, it's probably going to be short-lived, anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks, because, again, the Trump administration doesn't want to tank the economy, given the importance of the auto industry. But at the same time, I think their end game is about renegotiating this trade agreement.
Yeah. An agreement, of course, that they negotiated the first time. Mark, you mentioned EVs also, and I think that's important here because it's not just tariffs. I wonder to the extent that GM and Ford, obviously Tesla, I mean, they've been relying on certain policies that are no longer going to be in place. How big a distraction or how big a disconnection does that create for their business?
Well, it changes the whole economic viability of these programs. Because as you've seen a lot of the automakers push back a lot of their EV investments. They've canceled a lot of investments. So there's been a lot of capital that's been wasted. Part of it is because the consumer has not had the uptake that the automakers thought they would. And the other part is that's in an environment where there has been incentive help from the government. You take that away, and all of a sudden it's a net negative on top of what's a very difficult economic proposition for electric vehicles. So a lot of things in flux here. And listen, David, at the end of the day, it's a bit of a Rubik's Cube to be able to forecast auto industry when things are relatively stable. When you have this kind of uncertainty, it's almost like playing three-dimensional chess while blindfolded. And I think the biggest asset right now for any automaker around the world that does business in the U.S. is a berth at one of the U.S. ports right now, because they're trying to get not only finished vehicles in before tariffs potentially take effect, but a lot of components, engines, transmissions, and those are high-value import things that are going to be subject to this 25% rate.
Yeah, that explains a lot about the port data that we've gotten in the last few months. Mark, talk soon, I hope. Appreciate it very much. Have a good weekend. Mark Fields.
You bet.